Well, I think the through line of everything that I've done has been crisis and fire. The first business that I built was my dental clinic, and I built that during the global financial crisis and then ended up losing my dental career due to a genetic condition. My next company during the oil crisis in 2015 in Calgary, where our economy just went and then built the social media agency during the pandemic, built my two products during the what's now becoming the AI crisis. So what I always tell people is even though you're in crisis right now, whether it's personal or it's external to you, there is always so much opportunity to be had in it.
Welcome to the CTO Compass podcast. I'm your host, Mark Wormgoor, tech strategist and executive coach. In every episode, we meet tech leaders, from startup CTOs to enterprise CIOs, to explore what it means to lead in tech today. They share their stories and their lessons so that you can navigate your own journey in tech. Let's dive into today's episode. Hey everyone, welcome back. Today's episode is actually the last one of our season. We're going to take a quick break over the summer, 2 months. We'll be back in September, but we have an amazing guest today, Dr. Angela Mulrooney. She has started 5 companies, sold 4. She has had to reinvent herself every single time. And I love that she did. So I think for all of us in technology, she has a lot of lessons that I think we may need to apply today, if not very soon. Angela, very much welcome.
Thanks for having me, Mark. I appreciate it.
So tell me a bit more about that background. What is it that we really need to know and understand about how you got here and how you get to what you're doing today?
Well, I think the through line of everything that I've done has been crisis and fire. Literally, the first business that I built was my dental clinic, and I built that during the global financial crisis and then ended up losing my dental career due to a genetic condition, and then built my next company during the oil crisis in 2015 in Calgary, where our economy just went and then built the social media agency during the pandemic, built my two products during the what's now becoming the AI crisis. So what I always tell people is even though you're in crisis right now, whether it's personal or it's external to you, there is always so much opportunity to be had in it if you could just take a step back and get calm and get intentional and look around.
I love it. Tell me about the first one, the dental story, how you started it and why it's a walk away, and then how you decided to do something completely different.
So with dentistry I thought was my life path because I had wanted to play with teeth since I was 2 years old. So when I graduated from dental school at 24, it was a dream come true. I went out and primarily worked with children. So I worked with kids who were afraid of the dentist because no one else liked working with them. So I always had a position no matter what clinic I walked into. And then I ended up subbing at a practice for a dentist who was 78 years old. I was 28 at the time, so there was a 5-decade generation gap. And I had no intention of being an owner, but when I walked into that practice, something sparked in me and I could just see potential in everything in that place. And so I decided to buy it, not really realizing that it was a clinic that was full of scared adults. And I had primarily worked with scared kids. So pretty much the same skill set, except scared adults say way meaner things because they have the vocabulary. And went on to build a practice that catered to people who were afraid of the dentist. So dentist 20, 30 years my senior, started sending me patients. The practice, when I bought it, was really run down, broken down. It was still running like it was the 1960s. So we brought it into a high-tech status and really started building a community service for patients who were afraid of the dentist because I got my IV station, full mouth reconstruction, implants, sleep apnea, and whatnot. And then just as things were getting to be pretty perfect, I ended up having my hand completely stop responding to me during a surgery. And unfortunately, that was the last day that I got to practice clinical dentistry. So that sent me on a bit of a spiral because at 32, when it happened, that was a 30-year dream that suddenly just went up in smoke. And I was left in an identity crisis, really not knowing who I was, what I was supposed to be contributing to the world, how I was going to make a living. And so it was a pretty dark 2.5 years of my soul.
And you have to go and completely reinvent yourself then. So how did you get out of that dark place? What did you do? What was the road?
Well, for the 2.5 years of darkness, I was listening to everyone around me because everyone was telling me, well, you've built this amazing practice, you've got this great brand, people know who you are, just bring associates in your place and they can keep doing the work. The problem with that was that the people who were coming in to replace me had sent me patients. And so they were feeling like they couldn't fill my boots. And I'm like, well, didn't always do this kind of dentistry. Like, you can learn it if you want to. That was the reason our practice was successful, is because we catered to people who were afraid of the dentist, and other dentists could send us their patients. So we ended up having to revert the practice to a very basic practice. And then when 2015 hit and the oil crisis hit, like during the global financial crisis, Calgary did this. During the oil crisis, it did straight down. So I decided to sell it and move back to professional dance, because I had been a professional dancer as long as I was a dentist. And so that gave me respite from the dental world, because if I went to anything dental, people were asking me questions because they knew who I was, they knew what had happened, and I didn't really want to talk to strangers about what was going on in my world. So I moved on to dance and spent a year kind of licking my wounds about dentistry. And I did it again during a crisis, and people were like, you shouldn't be opening a dance company right now. Like, nobody needs a dance company at this moment. So when that happened, everyone was saying, no, we don't need another dance company, and like everyone's losing their jobs right now. And because I was doing something different, I figured out what my genius was in the dance world. I was able to become the second largest adult-based Latin company in our city in 6 months. So that allowed me to get away from dentistry. And then a year into that, I realized, spent a lot of time and money and heartache going through my dental career. So I probably have something that I should be sharing with the dental world, because the owner that I bought it from died halfway through the deal. His son tried to sell it out from underneath me. I got sued by my team, and I had built this practice that at a very young age had dentists much senior to me sending me their patients. So I decided to build a dental consultancy and leveraged LinkedIn to do that, and took my following from 200 to 12,000 in a year, and took the dental consultancy global in that year. And then people started coming to me and saying, hey, I saw what you did on LinkedIn. Can you do that for me? And so I started dabbling with a few people's LinkedIn, seeing if what I'd done was a unicorn or if it was something that was replicable. And it turned out it was replicable. So that's where the social media agency got launched 2 months to the day before the pandemic shut down Canada. And in that time from the shutdown at 10 months, and we went from 2.5 to 14 full-time team members, because we just exploded, because we had a unique approach. We were working with LinkedIn seasoned professionals, and a lot of my audience was fellow professional speakers as well. So they went from having 1,000 people in their audience to having to talk to this little black hole and not knowing how to do it. So that took us on a completely different journey there. And then a year into the pandemic, I decided to move to Central America, and was there for 3 months and realized I was working 100-hour work weeks. And that seemed really silly, since I was living in paradise, but not actually living in paradise. And so I decided to burn the companies down, sell them off, and go all in on my genius, which is really figuring out what your genius is, packaging it so the market understands it, and then being able to productize it so you can scale it. So that leads us to the work that I do today.
And those are such different companies, right? I mean, dental work, dance company, social media, dental consulting, reinventing yourself. What makes you actually successful at 5 such completely different things? How do you get there?
Those 3 components, like figuring out what the genius is that I have in that industry, figuring out how to create a bridge from me to the market so they understand what I bring uniquely to the situation and the outcomes that I bring, and then removing myself as the bottleneck to actually be able to scale it and productize it so that more people can benefit from what I do.
It sounds very easy. Thank you. For all of us, and right, I'm an entrepreneur myself, and you make it sound very easy. I wish it was. I think a lot of us would benefit from that insight and getting that success. Before we jump back in, here is something that I've learned from over 30 years of working in technology. The hardest part of leadership, it's not the technology, and it's not even the people or the teams. It's often that you're at it alone by yourself. There's no one in the room that fully gets what you're dealing with. There's no one that you can trust to discuss your decisions with. If that sounds familiar, find me on LinkedIn, Mark Wormgoor, and tell me what's in your mind. There's no pitch, just a discussion with somebody who's sat in that chair as well. Let's get back to it. But still, you must have made some big mistakes. Maybe some of them were really hard to let go. You've sold it all off. Do you miss any of the companies that you sold?
No, because I feel like I took the best of everything into what I do now. And this is one of the things that I talk to seasoned professionals about is I always feel like if they niche, they're going to be leaving skills on the table. You're never leaving skills on the table because everything that you've experienced influences the way that your brain thinks. So even now, because my initial training as a dentist, I still think about symptoms and treatment and diagnosis and all that when I am working through something with a client. Even though I don't talk about it that way, my brain still goes through those check marks the way that I used to as a dentist. So our skills are always there. Even dance, I help people to present on camera so they learn to use their body, their voice, they learn how to do things in a more physical way. So nothing is ever lost.
Nice. So even though you're going to, because most of us, and maybe this is the right time to move to technology a bit more. Most of us we start on one path, whether it's dental or technology, and we just stick there for the rest of our life. What makes us do that, and why should we actually reconsider doing something completely different like you did? It sounds really dangerous.
Well, the reason people stick to it is because that's how we're trained. Like in university, we were trained, get the grades, get the job, the titles, get into the institution, and that should be your path moving forward. And if you were to leave that, then it sounds like you're starting from ground zero, but you never are. Because along the way, even if you were, say, an engineer, you have learned some interpersonal skills. You've maybe learned management. You've learned so many things that are transferable to other places. And when I'm working with clients, I always want to find out, like, what do you actually want to be doing, right? If you had 3 things that you could commit to for the next 5 years, what would that be? Okay, now we know what that is. Let's build the company around that. Because if you actually love what you're doing, you're more likely to stick with it, and you're more likely to be good at it and passionate about it. And that will help you to have more success than just building something that makes money. Money is fairly empty. So that, finding that spark of joy in whatever your company is. And again, your skills are always going to come into play. So even say an engineer decides to own a car wash, they're still going to be leveraging some of their engineering skills because it influences the way that they approach things. We're trained into that, but we are trained to be scared to step out of the professional realm because of that game we were taught to play. But that game has changed significantly in the last 18 months. And it is making, honestly, being an employee seem way scarier than being an entrepreneur.
It would be an extremely high-tech car wash if it was started by an engineer, but let's
exactly.
put that aside. Let's talk about the AI, because so many skills right now that people have, I think the same in software engineering, in tech, but I think in almost any other industry, they seem to be getting replaced very quickly by AI. How do you see that?
Well, AI has democratized access to high-level information. And it's not a perfect system by any means. Right now, we still need humans interacting with it to control it and see what is actually happening. Lately, I've been noticing even some of the products that I've been relying on, there's been a lot of hallucinations where I'm like, that is so not correct. And so you still need to be watching it. But I think with these new technologies coming in and AI being a big part of it, is when someone looks at their history, especially if they've been in technology, they've been learning so many things all the time. It hasn't happened necessarily as fast as AI has brought it to the forefront, but they have the ability to be adaptable and to evolve. And so they need to give themselves some credit that they can actually learn this and make this an adjunct. And yes, maybe into the future it will take the jobs, but at this point it is something that you can use as a synergistic partner with you to help accelerate and do some things for you. You still have to check it and make sure that it isn't, giving you some wrong information, but there is a massive opportunity there. And I know a lot of people, I was even just talking to a friend this past weekend. He was like, oh, we hired this new person and, she's in her 50s and, she's kind of stuck in her ways. And I'm like, is she though? Because she's like in a technology position and she's always been in a technology position. You might be throwing your bias on top of her instead of actually allowing her the opportunity to showcase that she is quite flexible and dexterous in what she's doing. But we tend to forget that our seasoned professionals have been through so much change and they're used to change. And yes, okay, we're going through this accelerated phase of it, but it doesn't mean that they can't learn or are not willing to learn. And that's where sometimes people put ageism on themselves. Sometimes it's externally imposed as well.
I'm in my 50s. I'm not going to say anything here. So I agree with everything you said. I think change in your 50s is the same as in any other age. I mean, I live on change. Maybe that's I don't know if that's the right approach, but a whole different story. Still, a lot of people are quietly afraid of change, right? They fear that change. They know they're comfortable in what they're doing right now, and that they know they're being paid for that, and they just in general fear change or adopting or adjusting. It's hard to have somebody like that work with you or work for you, or to convince them that change isn't necessarily bad. What's your approach to that discussion?
Well, I think people are always going through change whether they want to or not, and we can be afraid of it. And you need to look at the reality of the current situation. If change is warranted for you to be able to stay employable or to build your company, then you need to be stepping into it. Otherwise, your financial future is a black hole and you have no idea what's going to be coming. So there's always an opportunity to evolve. And the old thinking that older people are not flexible and adaptable is wrong. And I see it, like I've got clients in their 70s that I work with who are so technologically advanced, like they sometimes put me to shame. And so we shouldn't be painting everyone with the same brush, but sometimes people paint themselves with the brush because they're like, well, I should be retiring at 65, which means I should be kind of like letting myself wind down. And then a lot of the people I talk to, they're like, 65 is when I feel like I'm getting ramped up. Like I've got so much to contribute now. And they are willing to adapt and learn, and they see things differently because they've seen so many things happen in the past. And so there's actually this calmness I find about change because they have been through so much and they can see they are a little bit more able to predict this could work, this could go badly, this is down the road what we could see because of the history that they have. So there's a massive opportunity to learn from people like that as well.
And when you start to embrace that change, when you really think this is something that I want, where do you start?
So embracing the change with starting it, what I find for most people is they really need to get centered with themselves first. So if they're going to, let's take, for example, someone is swapping from corporate to building their own thing, that's a massive change, bigger than they realize. And so if they have been relying on everyone else telling them what to do and everyone else giving them their value, they're hooped. Because especially if you go from an environment where you're around people giving you praise to being alone by yourself, and if something goes wrong, the entrepreneurial journey is never really all that linear, then it can be really hard on the ego and they can go running back scared to corporate, even though they had this endeavor that they wanted. So they really do have to get centered in what they want to do and then figure out what is actually going to get them there. Because where anyone is at this moment in time is a sum of choices. So if you want to be at a different place, you need to make different choices. And you have to take radical responsibility for that. There's going to be consequences to changing in your choices. But if you know where you want to go, you know what the impact is, maybe it's your big mission in life. If you actually own that with yourself and you're comfortable with that, no matter what people say about it, because no one around you wants you to change either, it's much easier when you actually have that centering in your own knowing of, this is the impact, this is my genius, this is what I want to do in this world. Who cares what anyone else thinks? But getting to that point of who cares is a challenge for most people because we're raised to seek external validation.
A quick one before we continue. If you're getting something out of this conversation, please hit the subscribe button below. That way other tech leaders can find us as well. I would really appreciate it. Let's get back to it. The people that you work with, how do they make, I've made it through change myself. I was in corporate. Everything you just said applies to me, but how do people go through that change? How do you help people actually go from that external praise to finding their own center?
it's a lot of digging into almost like the voices in their head, because they need to dig into, I have a program called Unleash Your Badass Self for Profitability. And we dig into the layers of like, where did that belief come from? Because what you can believe anything and your brain will go along with it, no problem. So if you keep believing what you were told before, like maybe you were told you were worthless, or maybe you're told that you're not adaptable, then if you keep telling yourself you're not that, you'll stay being that. If you start telling yourself you actually are adaptable and you start figuring out, okay, this was something that someone implanted in me. Maybe it was university, maybe it was parents, maybe it was a country that you grew up in. When you can identify that and go, well, that's actually not what I want to believe, or what is I need to believe to get to where I want to go, then they can start reprogramming their beliefs and their mindset. And our minds are really funny, because no matter what we think, like if you think about when you're dreaming, you can wake up in the middle of the night with your heart racing because of something that you imagined, and your body completely believed that you were going through that, right? Your body responded to it. So if you are allowing yourself to think about what you actually want, your body will respond to that as well. It can't tell the difference between reality and dreaming and imagining of what you want. So you can reprogram yourself. It takes effort, it takes time, and it takes a lot of digging into that. And once you start identifying those old systems that you were operating in, and you start making choices and being aware of where you want to go, then you can actually start moving forward quite quickly, and the self-sabotage starts to move away. But so many people are self-sabotaging without even realizing it, because they didn't realize, their parents told them, this is kind of the level that you'll ever be at, and you're never going to get past that. And once they realize, well, if someone else who grew up with me made it to a completely different place, why can't I do that? Of course you can. So there's so much that we pick up as children, as teenagers, even as young adults, that informs how we behave now. And we have to do a lot of unraveling of that in order to unleash ourselves into the future.
It's a lot of hard work. I know also from experience.
It's not simple.
But if we take this back a little bit, and we have this, let's say we have the CTO, and he's leading his team of engineers, and now he's just forced to go and take his team through all this change as well. Because, the world is changing around us really, really rapidly, and our work is changing rapidly. What would be your advice to him or them?
Kindness. Because people are scared, and people are scared in general right now. They're scared of losing their jobs. They're scared they're going to be replaced by AI. They're scared that they're going to be judged as not good enough if they're not catching up fast enough. So when we can get people out of that fear state, that's where we actually move things forward. So having conversations, even in the tech industry, we need to treat people as human beings, because that is what's actually going to move them forward. Being really harsh with them and pushing them and pushing them and pushing them and telling them they're not good enough is going to just put them into a state of fight, flight, or freeze. And we really aren't good at much when we're in that state. So when we can actually be human and let people actually be vulnerable and have conversations about it, which tech isn't really known for being super vulnerable, but when you can actually get that out and acknowledge it, that allows people to get into productive action instead of being in that fight, flight, or freeze where they're just constantly on an adrenaline rush and worried that everything is going to fall apart. But if there's that kindness and understanding, obviously you can't just let people run amok, but having them have the opportunity to be able to express what's going on will help them to move through the change a lot more easily than being harsh about it.
I love that. And in this journey, right, you've talked about people finding their own center, people finding their own dreams, but also just now about the kindness. What are the biggest mistakes that you see people make along this way on this journey?
Well, oftentimes the biggest mistake, especially if someone is developing a company, is falling in love with your idea. And I see people often spend years building something, but not actually selling it. And they're in love with the idea that it's going to work out. If I build it, they'll come. And it's like, well, you also need to build the path to people finding the thing that you built and building that reputation. That's where places like LinkedIn and marketing come in, so that people can actually know that you've built this amazing thing. Because if no one knows about it, you're not going to be successful no matter how enamored you are in it. And I actually was on a podcast last week where the guy said, and I argued with him about this because he was like, well, I feel like it's great to fail on your first 5 or 6 sales calls because you're going to learn so much. And it's like, well, if you have someone offering some guidance who has been there, done that, who can bring that discernment to your situation and help you not to fail that many times. Yes, you're going to fail, but maybe let's fail a little less hard so that you're not spending 2-3 years with 0 clients while you're still going, it's going to work out, it's going to work out, right? And I feel with how fast things are accelerating right now, you can't spend those 2 to 3 years failing hard and just learning the lessons the hard way. You need to bring in people who can help you, and the more heads you have to actually help you to move things forward, the better. So even within my company, like, I'm not the only one thinking about the products. I have a team who's thinking about the products as well, because I can see what I can see. I have my history, I have my lens. The other people are coming from different places as well. So when we put our heads together, we synergistically accelerate the quality of the products and move things forward. So that's what I think.
Those building relationships and actually finding those people around you. And then from there, you talk about also, and I think this is more for those that are actually building a company, that are in a company, it's about using the IP that you build up and actually scaling based on IP instead of based on the people. What do you mean by that one?
Well, you definitely want to be scaling with people as well. But when you have people bringing in their intellectual property and everyone is working together on the same thing and they can bring in their viewpoint from it, then you have a more comprehensive product. If it's just one person thinking, like, I know everyone is in this race to be the first billion-dollar solopreneur, right? But when you have other heads coming in and thinking about it, you have the ability to iterate it so much faster and innovate faster than you just being an island and a solopreneur in it. And again, with how fast things are accelerating, it's good to have different viewpoints so that you can innovate faster.
If I've been listening to your story and I'm thinking to myself, I would like to change, I just have no idea where to go. What's like the one question that I should be thinking about maybe this weekend to get some first ideas of what to do next or where to go or what I want?
So in terms of evolving career to the next level?
Yeah. Yes.
I have this little thing that I recommend. It's called the sticky note exercise. So what I recommend is grab a set of sticky notes and write down every skill that you have and put it on a board, go to sleep, come back the next morning and order it and figure out what the top 3 skills are that you'd be willing to commit to for the next 5 years. Because that will make it very clear as a professional what you actually really like doing. Because you can get paid for a lot of different things. You can do a lot of things, especially if you have decades of experience, but it doesn't mean you actually want to do it. Once you know what those top 3 things are, then it becomes clear that's what you want to start saying yes to. Everything else you want to start saying no to. And some people can throw a switch and instantly go yes and no. Some people kind of have to do a dimmer switch and slowly get rid of things. But it will start honing your brain to start seeing the possibilities with those 3 top skills. And that will start shaping what your genius is, what maybe you want to build around, or maybe what kind of contracts you want to be getting if you're consulting, and helping you to build the path to the future that you want. Instead of doing everything that you've always done, you can now say, I want to be a little more selective about this. I want to be at my highest level potential. And those 3 things are my highest level potential. And so you start being able to hone your path in the direction that is actually going to give you the most satisfaction.
And this is for a lot of the people in the tech industry, I think myself included, and so many more. Marketing and sales is usually not on that list of the top 3 skills. Then what?
Yes. So yeah, if people are wanting help beyond that, I do have a product called the Unleashing Influence System, which you go and you talk to the machine for a couple of hours. It interviews you on past, present, and future, and it hands you a 100+ page document that gives you what your genius actually is in the market. It gives you how to put yourself out there to build that endeavor that you want. And it doesn't parrot back to what you said. Instead, it extrapolates information. So it gives you a really clear centering. People, whenever they read it, they always say, that's not how I would have described myself, but it's exactly what I need to do. And that will get you light years ahead. That's like having someone come in and work with you on it, except you can do it by yourself, and it gives you a really objective opinion of where you're at. So for people who want to accelerate it beyond the sticky notes, then that is a tool that I highly recommend, because we always have people have profound outcomes with it.
Cool. And I think we can actually, if you send me the link, I'll make sure that we put that in the show notes as well. People want to learn more about this. They want to learn more about you. I think you actually have some books as well. Where do people find you? Where do they go? What's the best place?
LinkedIn is probably the best place because I put out content regularly. So look up Dr. Angela Mulrooney, and you can also check out unleashinginfluence.com.
That in the show notes. Angela, it's been incredible having you on. For everyone else, I said we're taking a 2-month break for the summer. We'll be back in September with a lot of fresh new guests. Angela, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Mark. I appreciate it.
As we wrap up another episode of the CTO Compass, thank you for taking the time to invest in you. The speed at which tech and AI develop is increasing, demanding a new era of leaders in tech. Leaders that can juggle team and culture, code and infra, cyber and compliance, all whilst working closely with board members and stakeholders. We're here to help you learn from others, set your own goals and navigate your own journey. And until next time, keep learning, keep pushing, and never stop growing.